Remember Project 2025, like the horror movie villain that just won't die? This is an extremist doctrine, which we could validly call a fascist playbook that was put together by Christian nationalists and laid out as a guidebook for the incoming Trump regime. During the campaign, Donald tried desperately to distance himself from Project 2025. And this was him at the debate during which Kamala Harris handed his ass to him.
And I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do.
Open book. Also, methinks thou dost protest too much, as they say. Listen, Donald's connection to Project 2025 is obvious. At least 140 people who worked on it previously worked in his first administration. Let's take a look, though, at what Project 2025 lays out. Check out this clip.
Project 2025 is a roadmap to take America back to the 1950s.
It wants to minimize who actually can experience real freedom in this country.
Comprehensive MAGA extremist agenda
to amass power to one man.
A way for Donald Trump to actually execute all of his worst instincts, all of his grievances, all of his revenge efforts.
We were founded as a democracy where no man can become a king.
It would be a hostile takeover of the U.S. government and the United States as a whole.
All true, but with all due respect to my Congressman, Dan Goldman, the goal is not to take us back to 1950, but to take us back to 1850. Now, before we dive deeper into just how implicated Donald is with this disaster, just a quick reminder, please like this video and please subscribe to our channel. It's free. Okay, so let's look at the policies. No matter what Donald says, we are already seeing a lot of the core tenets of 2025 being played out in certain proposals that are being put forward. For example, we have the gutting of abortion access. In Project 2025, there's a plan to revive what's called the Comstock Act of 1873, which is named for Anthony Comstock, a notorious anti-vice activist and Victorian prude. To ban any materials, medications, or equipment used in abortion from being sent by the United States Postal Service. Also to reverse the FDA approval of mifepristone, a drug used in medical abortions. And I am telling you, they are also gunning for contraception. Since Donald has been president-elect, we see women stocking up on mifepristone because they know what's coming and they want to stay protected. Just a quick public service announcement. The shelf life of mifepristone is like 2 to 3 years. So stock up. It will last that long. One telehealth provider of mifepristone said that the day after the election, intake forms rose from 130 to 140 people to more than 1,000. Women understand what is happening here. Next, we have mass deportation. Project 2025 will target immigrant communities through mass deportation and raids, end birthright citizenship, separate families, and dismantle the nation's asylum system, which will decimate the American economy, not to mention the cruelty that will be inflicted upon millions of people. Now the administration is calling for withholding of federal grants for so-called sanctuary cities that don't cooperate with their plans. Watch this.
President-elect Trump has promised to conduct what he calls the largest deportation program in American history on day one of his new term.
What they're talking about is withholding federal grants to sanctuary cities. Any jurisdiction, you could look at New York, for example, many in Maryland, Chicago, Colorado, places across the country, California as a state that would not have access to this very large pot, about $250 million of federal funding that goes out to law enforcement, not just to help with cops, but also things like drug rehab programs. A lot of law enforcement agencies, especially those in underserved areas, really depend on those federal grants. Yeah,
good luck with that, because just a reminder, and I'm sure Donald doesn't know this, but blue states like California and New York overwhelmingly help fund quote unquote welfare states, like deep red states in the South. So hopefully governors of blue states that are threatened with such sanctions will fight back accordingly. Then, of course, there are plans to declare a national emergency, which would allow the military to be deployed in the deportation program. But Donald is going one step further than that, threatening to draft an executive order that would create a board, essentially a star chamber, to purge generals who refuse to comply with these or any other plans his administration may have, even if those orders are illegal.
The Wall Street Journal just dropped a story under this headline, quote, Trump draft executive order would create board to purge generals. The panel could upend the military review process and raise concerns about the politicization of the military. Quote, the Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order that establishes a warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership.
The right has always been gunning for the Department of Education, but now the future of the department is in jeopardy, and there are calls to abolish it outright. Furthermore, Project 2025 proposes censoring academic discussions about race, gender, and systemic oppression, and promising to cut federal funding for schools with curricula, well, that teach our children, which seems like a really bad idea. This is how we're seeing this play out already. In Oklahoma, the Secretary of Education there is already calling for public schools to incorporate the Bible, quote, as instructional support into the curriculum across grades 5 through 12. Watch this.
President-elect Trump has repeatedly vowed to abolish the Department of Education. That call has been echoed by Oklahoma's top educator, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ryan Walters.
For too long in this country, we've seen the radical left attack individuals' religious liberty in our schools. We've also seen patriotism mocked and a hatred for this country pushed by woke teachers' unions. We will not tolerate that in any school in Oklahoma.
Walters is requiring that all public schools in the state show students that video, which includes him leading a prayer for President-elect Trump. Walters is already facing 2 lawsuits stemming from his earlier mandate that schools incorporate the Bible into lesson plans in grades 5 through 12.
It seems to me like a really bad idea to let a deviant like that guy anywhere near our children, but he has his own little grift going, because you're never going to guess where those Oklahoma Bibles are coming from.
MAGA Republicans in Oklahoma are mandating that the Bible be taught in public schools, so now they need 55,000 copies, but each Bible reportedly has to meet some oddly specific criteria. These Bibles must be the King James Version, contain the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance, Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights, and be bound in leather or leather-like material. Not many meet those standards, but what do you know, Donald Trump's $60 God Bless the USA Bible checks all the boxes.
So weird. So listen, we've been seeing this for a long time, but now the separation of church and state is an actual agenda. In Louisiana, they're plastering the 10 Commandments on the walls of public schools. Take a look at this.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry signed into law a bill requiring the 10 Commandments be easily readable on a poster-sized display in every publicly funded classroom in the state from kindergarten through college by 2025.
If you want, it's incredible how aggrieved these people are. Even when they win, it's not enough. They have to push for more. So basically, the law he signed it's illegal on its face. It'll be fascinating to see what the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court does, because let's be real, when they talk about religious liberty and protecting religious liberty, they're basically only talking about protecting Christianity. Then, of course, we have the drive to roll back LGBTQ plus rights, especially trans rights. Project 2025 will weaponize federal law to require states and private actors to discriminate against transgender people. It threatens to sue schools that protect the rights of trans students and will tell hospitals they will lose their Medicaid funding if they provide gender-affirming medical care to trans adolescents. This is what Donald thinks of those measures.
On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children.
Project 2025, specifically on restricting LGBTQ rights, what that details is reinstating a transgender military ban, limiting LGBTQ workplace discrimination protections. Currently under the law, sexual orientation and gender identity are protected. It would rescind healthcare protections for transgender people and urge Congress to define gender as male and female fixed at birth. Trump has repeatedly said also, William, that he would ban gender-affirming care for minors, and this playbook makes pretty clear that this plan also is trying to stop any and all acknowledgement of and acceptance of gender identity and LGBTQ people, period.
Yep, cruelty, ignorance, and fear. That's all they've got, basically. And they are going to double, triple, and quadruple down on it because now they have the power to do so. According to Project 2025, the goal is also to eliminate up to 1 million civil servants jobs. This would be an expansion of Schedule F, which was an executive order Donald signed at the end of 2020 before it was able to do too much damage. And this would remove civil service protections for many federal workers. The goal, of course, would be to replace what have traditionally been nonpartisan civil servants with loyalists, that is, people who are loyal to Donald, not the United States or the Constitution. So Project 2025's proposed cuts, privatization, and hiring freezes, as I said, are estimated to eliminate up to 1 million federal jobs, which is bad enough, but what makes it worse is the way they're going about it. They've put this extraordinarily ignorant and incompetent Vivek Ramaswamy in charge of this endeavor. He plans, quote unquote, mass reductions in agency deletions. He advocates having federal workforce being cut using a social security number elimination system. So basically, if your social security number ends in an odd number, you're out. And then, of course, we have controlling the media, which is something that Donald has been trying to do and succeeded in doing in many cases for years now. He wants to appoint member of the Federal Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, as its chair. Carr authored the section in Project 2025 about the FCC. And under his ruling, what he calls liberal media outlets or those who've challenged Donald in the past are being threatened with having their licenses revoked. The Press Act, which is a bipartisan bill passed unanimously by the House of Representatives, by the way, is designed to protect journalists and their sources. Donald is calling on the Senate to block the passage of this bill so that the government would have free access to all journalists' information or punish them by imprisonment or worse. So let's get this very clear. Donald can pretend all he wants that he has no affiliation with Project 2025, yet he and his administration have begun implementing at least 7 of its core principles. We report on these things so you can stay prepared, right? If you're someone who has children or somebody you know has children and you want to take control of their, help them take control of their reproductive health, prepare them and support them. If you work in federal agencies, contact your union representatives and organize before Donald gets into office on January 20th, 2025. If you know someone in the trans community, learn how you can support and protect them and be a trusted ally. If your child is attending public schools, try to organize with other parents in your community, push back against these measures, and demand that your child be educated in a way that is commensurate with the realities of American history. If you work in the media, use end-to-end encryption channels as a way to communicate, like Signal and specific web browsers, to protect your information. Finally, if you are brave enough, or perhaps stupid enough, or just because you think better of people, And you're going to be spending Thanksgiving with relatives who voted for Donald because eggs were too expensive. We're just going to use that as a euphemism. Print out these talking points, discuss them or try to discuss them in a civil way. Keep the table between you and them at all times, and then let us know how it goes. Thanks. Hey, everybody. In case you weren't aware, I am spectacularly bad at self-promotion. So here goes. Please subscribe to our channel and like and share our videos. Your support means so much to all of us. Thank you.